Orange Juice is the name of an indie game dev circle who obviously thought it would be a good idea to name themselves after a common everyday drink. 100% Orange Juice is a 4-player dice-dominated board game on PC for some reason. You live by the dice, you die by the dice, you take it up the butt from your own choices by the dice. So obviously, the first mistake you could possibly make is to take this game too seriously when the game invariably does toss you down a well. When you first start up the game and make a profile, the game has you enlist 1 out of 4 starting characters, and the rundown of them is really quite simple. You pick QP if you're a normie and your only defining feature is the fact that you have no defining features. You pick Suguri if you're a hardcore weeboo who only runs on 2 settings, Crackhead and Cracked Head. You pick Mark if you're an arsonist and you hate other humans, and you pick Kai if you're a total coward and play like nothing but. The story's not much to write home about at all, really. The campaign mode mainly serves as a device to show off different maps and unlock characters to buy in the in-game shop, but it doesn't seem like there's a pattern to how the characters get unlocked in the first place. After beating a character in their campaign stage, they might become available in the shop anywhere between 2 to 4 missions later, and 2 of them didn't even appear in the shop after I finished up the final boss. I'm also pretty sure the devs had to buy their own storage tank to collect the players' tears when they decided they would force you to go through the entire campaign with Maripopo on every stage. Navigating the menus in the shop can be a challenge in itself as well. There's a main menu for when you start up the game, and another main menu for after you pick out your profile, and the game has a rather paranoid attitude towards the player's decision making outside of the game, taking a lot of opportunities to ask, "Are you sure?" Which, might I point out, is a detriment to your shop system that sells cards 1 at a time, because the point of collecting cards is that you're never really aware of how much you're spending until you're suddenly unable to pay this month's star loan, and it's only harder to get to that point if the shop has to ask you if you're sure you really want to buy the same card for the 7th time that you can only use 3 of at once anyway. Controls are also weird, as everyone should come to expect out of Japanese PC ports, but hey, at least the escape key doesn't quit the game without warning for no reason this time. Every time you start a match, each of the 4 players picks a character to play as and 10 cards to supplement their character choice. The total of 40 cards plus 8 blank hyper cards form a universal deck that then gets picked from every time a card is drawn in game. The game then loads up, and each player starts in their own corner of the map, taking turns to move around the map, collect stars, and kill each other off. The game plays out like Mario Party if Mario Party had D&D combat mechanics in place of minigames, which means that any friends you play this game with may not be friends for a short while afterward. You get stars, land on your home space to level up, whack other players as you pass by to steal their stars, and pass 6 levels to win the game. Roll a die, draw a card, roll a die, roll to die. Each character has their own slightly unique stats and special hyper ability from those hyper cards, and the idea is that you're allowed to choose from a multitude of different playstyles depending on character and card choices. Fine in theory, however, theories are generally unstable things that can often be broken down by putting them into practice, and the issue with this one is that how you play is still up to the will of the random number generator. There's no guarantee you'll ever draw up the cards you put into the deck, and an equal chance someone else will draw up your cards and kill you with them. Not to mention there's a card that specifically exists to mix the other cards in people's hands, which is incredibly hilarious in a sort of troll-tastic kind of way. It's also entirely possible that a bunch of hyper cards get picked up by everyone but you, and if you ever see this setup run by a player with this avatar and you still hit the ready button, you only have yourself to blame if the game you just walked into isn't fun for you. There are enough maps to ensure some replayability, although I think being this heavily dominated on randomness gives a lot of that on its own, so take comfort in that as you contemplate whether it'd be worth your while to leave and start a new game after your accelerator move phase rolls a 3 into a 4-hit bang bell. I don't want to say too much about this game because I do recommend it to anyone who enjoys drunk stupid fun with random strangers, because for some godforsaken reason there's no local multiplayer. The randomness does give the game a sort of water cooler effect for a while, where no 2 games are ever exactly the same, so each group playing the game has a different story to tell about it the next day. My favorite play is setting up and detonating enough bomb traps around the map to make everyone paranoid of every trap on the field regardless of who actually put it down, at which point the game sends me careening into my own bombs to punish me for my hubris. If Orange Juice was an airline company, RNG would be their most famous pilot. Also, they'd be called Germanwings.